What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right. Now, I got a request to talk about this situation, and that's some comments by Kevin Garnett, former NBA player, about him and the Celtics breaking LeBron back in 2010, which led to LeBron leaving the Cavaliers and going to the Miami Heat. And he said this on Bill Simmons' podcast. And I looked at Ticket's video. I pretty much agree with Ticket. I, I agree with him, but I slightly disagree with him on one thing. I agree with him that it's kind of yes and no. It's kind of yes and no about whether or not it was the Celtics that led to LeBron leaving the Cavaliers. Um, yes, the Celtics were proven to be a thorn in his side. I forget the years. People can remember, can correct me, but I want to say it might have been 2008, where it might have been the Magic that knocked LeBron out of the playoffs. And then 2009, 2010, it might have been the Celtics, or it might have been 2009 where it was the Celtics, the Magic, in 2008, 2010. I can't remember, but I definitely remember 2010 it was the Boston Celtics. And the fact remains that the Boston Celtics were just too good of a team for LeBron James to overcome at that time. They pretty much they had all of the veteran experience. They had all those great players. Even if they were a little bit past their prime, they were still good enough. And people forget about that Celtics bench too. And people forget that that team had a pretty good bench, man. You know what I'm saying? You remember Rasheed Wallace was on that team. You know what I'm saying? So that team had a lot of playoff experience. And at the end of the day, it was the team was just too much. And yeah, some of it was LeBron. Like, I don't think I have the pieces necessary. I don't think I'll ever have the pieces necessary with Cleveland to beat this team. All right, they got a big three. With the Pistons, it was not a bunch of superstars, but it was Rip Hamilton, Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace, Tayshaun Prince, Chauncey Billups. There was a lot of good parts. With the Heat, it was Shaq, Wade. I don't want to include Peyton because Peyton was kind of near the like pretty much washed up, but it was a lot of good role players. Plus, Shaq still had a little bit left in his tank. Wade was playing like fucking Jordan on steroids in that series. Of course, with the Lakers, Kobe and Shaq. It was a tandem. At least it was a tandem with these other teams. With the Spurs, it was Ginobili, Duncan, Parker. You know what I'm saying? Early on, David Robinson, Steven Jackson. Got to throw Bruce Bowen in there. It was pieces in a group. The best player LeBron had with him that year was what? A broken down Mo. Well, not broken down, but Mo Williams. I mean, LeBron. LeBron didn't really have a lot of. He didn't have a lot of pieces. Okay, so yeah, part of it was the Celtics, but a lot of it also was the media. The people forget the extreme pressure that was on LeBron James to win a championship at that time. Not trying to make excuses for him, but there was a lot of pressure on him to win a championship. A lot of it, constantly. Comparing him to Jordan, comparing him to Kobe, comparing him to Bird. The clock was ticking. A king without a ring. How can you be the best player in the NBA and you don't have a championship? So ultimately that that plus if the rumors are true, and I don't know. There's been a lot of denials about it, but if you recall the situation, the rumors about his mother and a certain teammate, all of these things happen at the same time, and all these things led to his decision to leave Cleveland. You know, to play along with Dwayne Wade, who had already won a championship, but the team had become mediocre again, and they had, matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, 2010, the Miami Heat were ousted in the first round by the Boston Celtics. So they shared a common enemy, the Boston Celtics. Chris Bosh came along. So they formed, quote unquote, a super team. Now, LeBron, when he said he never played on a super team, get the fuck out of here, Miami was pretty much a super team, LeBron. Get out of here, okay? But back to the point. So, yeah, he did leave a little bit for that, but also because of the pressure from the media to win a championship. And that's why LeBron was so maligned and so put down by the media when he had that terrible performance in the finals in 2011. That's pretty much the lowest point in LeBron James' career at that moment. At that point, some people actually stopped speaking LeBron as the best player. Like, it was such a bad performance and was such a letdown, and it added to Skip Bayless's argument at the time so much that a lot of people who have been calling LeBron the best player in the NBA stopped calling him the best player in the NBA for a year because they was like he didn't earn that right anymore. That's how bad it was for LeBron after 2011. But that was a long time ago. Now, my issue with Kevin Garnett is this. Now, yeah, it's true. It's true that, part of the reason why a lot of people call me a hypocrite and like, well, but the Lakers ran you out of Minnesota and you didn't do anything in Minnesota. And yeah, the West was loaded. Okay, the West was loaded back then. You had the San Antonio Spurs. You had, of course, the Lakers. They were winning championships left and right. Then you had the Sacramento Kings, who some people will tell you if Game 6 was officiated fairly, maybe that team would have wound up winning the title in 2002. All right. Then you have the Dallas Mavericks. They starting to make noise. All right. With Dirk and all of them, saying they starting to make noise. Then you got to throw Portland in there, the Portland Trailblazers, especially earlier in the early 2000s. So there were quite a few franchises that were making noise. Then you had Yao and Tracy McGrady doing a little bit of damage for a while. You know, um, then in the very very early part of the 2000s, shit, you still had Utah. You still had the Sonics. Were they championship caliber teams at the time? No, but they still were capable of beating you in a series because they still had a nice mix of savvy veterans and some young guns and great coaching, especially with the Jazz. So yeah, it was very hard for the Timberwolves with Kevin Garnett, who is a dominant player, but not the type of dominant player that can carry a team by himself. You know what I'm saying? He's the type of guy that would need some other pieces, some other significant pieces around him. But the only thing I have to say about that is you can make the argument about a lot of players with that, that people constantly bring up as being losers. Elgin Baylor. Elgin Baylor never won a title. And I always contend one of the main reasons why Elgin Baylor never won a title is because they had to go against the Boston Celtics all the fucking time. And the Celtics, shit, at any given time, you had 5, 6, 7 future Hall of Famers on one fucking team. Charles Barkley, Karl Malone. These guys didn't win championships You know what I'm saying? Patrick Ewing, John Stockton, Reggie Miller. These guys didn't win championships primarily because of one or two common denominators. Michael Jordan and Hakeem Olajuwon. Those two players, mostly Michael, but for a little while, Hakeem Olajuwon, prevented a lot of guys from winning titles, or at least delayed guys like Shaq from winning titles. So, you know, there's a lot of guys in NBA history didn't win championships not because they choked in the playoffs. They might have had a bad game in the series, true, but they didn't necessarily choke in the playoffs. They just unfortunately played in the wrong era. Like if you were in the Western Conference in the 1980s and you weren't on the Lakers, you were shit out of luck. Sorry, Adrian Dantley. Sorry, Alice English. Sorry, Purvis Short. Sorry, Sleepy Floyd. You know what I'm saying? Too bad. So sad. You know, sorry for you. That's just how the West was in the 1980s. If you weren't part of that team, you weren't going to win a championship. Now, of course, the Houston Rockets won a couple times in the 80s, but it is what it is. Conversely, in the East, in the early 1980s, if you weren't on the Sixers or the Celtics, even though those Milwaukee Bucks teams were pretty good in the 80s, if you weren't on those two teams, you weren't going to win the title. Later on in the 80s, if you weren't on the Celtics or the Pistons, you weren't going to win a championship at that particular time. They were too good because you weren't going to get past those two teams. But my one problem with Kevin Garnett is this. Kevin Garnett's a Hall of Fame player, no doubt about it. But the fact remains that Boston Celtic team underachieved. They underachieved, all right? The one thing I remember about the 2008 Celtics is they had to constantly keep coming back, or they let a lot of series go the distance that shouldn't have went the distance. That Celtics team in the regular season romped through the regular season. They won 66 games, if my memory serves me correctly. But I believe in every series from the first round onward, I think the first three rounds or so, didn't each series go 7 games or something like that? They went 7 games with the Atlanta Hawks, if I'm not mistaken, in the first round. All right. They went 7 games with the Hawks. I think they went 7 games with the Cavaliers, 6 or 7 games with the Pistons, and 6 games with the Lakers. Now, I was rooting for the Celtics that year because I liked Garnett at the time. This is before he turned into a complete and utter asshole. I was rooting for Paul Pierce because I thought he was a really good player on a terrible team. And this is before he became a bit of a nut as an announcer or an analyst. And I love Ray Allen. Didn't think they used him enough sometimes. But they should have won more. Now, 2010 went down to the wire. You know, that series could have went either way. I think that the X factor in that series, to me, it wasn't that Kendrick Perkins didn't play in that series. Maybe that could have pushed him over the edge, but I think the X factor was Pau Gasol dominating that matchup with Kevin Garnett. That was the X factor. 2 years before that, Garnett was dominating that matchup with Pau Gasol, but that was the Kobe effect. That was Kobe Bryant toughening up, toughening up Pau Gasol, in my opinion. All right. But in 2009, this wasn't their fault, but Garnett got injured. Okay, Garnett got injured. And who knows? Maybe they could have played the Celtics in 2009 and maybe they would have beaten them. Who knows? But then ultimately afterward, the Celtics, if I remember correctly, didn't they lose in some series that they should have won? Was it 2011? But that team should have won more than one championship. The way that Garnett talks, sometimes these guys talk, they talk like they won multiple championships. When in reality, they only made the two finals and lost one of them. Now, Garnett did win a championship. Pierce did win a championship. Ray Allen won a championship. But LeBron has won three and has been to, I believe, more championships by himself than all three of those guys put together. So at the end of the day, LeBron James will go down as a greater player than all three of these guys. And I know you guys might be expecting me to go, yeah, Garnett. Fuck him. I told you dudes, man, I'm not a hater, man. I worship a concept, not a king. I don't play favorites. You know what I'm saying? I call shit like I see it. In this situation, I think Garnett has a little bit of a point, but at the end of the day, I think there's other factors involved as well as to why LeBron James went to the Miami Heat. Now, you can look at it however you want to look at it. At the time, I wasn't crazy about the move because I'm from a different era. I'm from an era where you want to beat everybody, not play and join up with guys. But it is what it is, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is, you know. But tell me what you guys think.